Let me see here. Just in case I want to look at my targums, I'm going to put my Tov Rose targums next to me. Just in case I want to look at them when we're reading this Torah portion. All right, we're about to be live. Let me see here. Just in case I want to look up. All right, here we go. Here we go. So let's make sure we got record to the cloud. All right, shalom, everyone. I'm Brother Doug with the Awakened by Yahuwah Assembly and Yahuwah Almighty Yahushua Messiah. Today, we are continuing our new Torah Portion PDF that I found a couple of weeks ago. So this week's portion's name will be called Shivat. Or actually, that's the name of the month. My bad. The actual portion is called Bo. Okay, so we are going to be going from Exodus 10 to 13. So let me just get my word software up there. As usual, I'll be doing a three-way comparison that I usually do on the word software. The Samaritan Pentateuch compared to the Septuagint compared with the Targum Onkelos. So I'm going to be, or you might pronounce it as Onkelos. I forget how it's supposed to be pronounced. All right, so here we go. Let's see here. I think I'll choose the Complete Apostles Bible, Samaritan Pentateuch in English, and the Ankh. Okay, here we go. And Exodus chapter 10. So we're taking off where we're now at the end of the plagues here. This is where Yahuwah is about to destroy Pharaoh in Egypt. All right, here we go. Let me just make sure we got no background noise going on at all. Okay, there we go. All right, here we go, everyone. Exodus chapter 10. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, "Go into Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart." Here we go with the predestination. Yahuwah has hardened his heart and the heart of his servants, that these signs, here's the purpose here. Here's the purpose of the vessels of wrath. Okay, that these signs may come upon them in order. And I hate how there's a gap here. I really don't like that. They should just have verse 2 right after. All right, that you may relate in the ears of your children and to your children's children in how many things I have mocked the Egyptians. I love that I have mocked the Egyptians. And my wonders which I worked among them, you shall know that I am Yahuwah. What I find interesting here is the Onkelos is trying to put Moses on a pedestal a little bit. Says that he would not send away his sons of Yisrael as Yahuwah had spoken by the hand of Moses. A little weird. So I don't know. That's a little strange in my opinion. With the Onkelos is kind of putting Moshe on a pedestal there. All right. So let's see here. Verse 3 here. Okay. It says, and Moshe and Aaron went in before Pharaoh, and they said to him, "Thus says Yahuwah, Elohim of the Hebrews, how long do you refuse to reverence me? Let my people go that they may serve me." Now, interesting note here. The word reverence in our British English language, reverence is an interesting word. It means to lovingly fear someone. It's not just out of frighten. It actually means you have deep respect. You fear them out of respect. So it's a little different than regular fear. Mm-hmm. And that's the one pet peeve I have about certain translations, the Hebrew roots type of translations. They don't like the word fear, and they put reverence for every time there's fear, and that kind of confuses people. So that's not here nor there. All right, verse 4. But if you will not send my people away, behold, at this hour tomorrow, I will bring an abundance of locusts upon all your coasts. Why is there so much gaps in the Complete Apostles Bible? I really hate that. I got to constantly scroll down. All right. So, and they shall cover the face of the earth, and you shall not be able to see the earth. and they shall devour all that is left of the abundance of the earth, which the hail has left you, and shall devour every tree that grows for you on the land. And your houses shall be filled, and the houses of your servants, and the houses in all the land of the Egyptians, things which your fathers have never seen, nor their forefathers from the day that they were upon the earth until this day. And Moshe turned away and departed from Pharaoh. And Pharaoh's servants said to him, how long shall this be a snare to us? Send the men away that they may serve their Elohim. Don't you know that Egypt is destroyed? And they brought back both Moshe and Aaron to Pharaoh, and he said to them, go and serve Yahuwah your Elohim. But who are they that are going with you? And Moshe said, we will go with the young and the old, and with our sons and daughters, and our oxen and our sheep, for it is a feast to Yahuwah. And he said to them, so let Yahuwah be with you as I send you. Now, I remember Sister Marissa was asking me, I think a Shabbat or so ago, like, do I think he's being facetious a little bit, Pharaoh? Yeah. He doesn't want to say, Yah speed, really. He's kind of being a jerk right now. He's kind of disingenuously saying, Yahuwah be with you. Okay. I send you away. So I will send you away. Everything's got to be about Pharaoh, right? Oh, it was by my power I let you go. Yeah. Go ahead, Brother Joshua. Go ahead. I see you got your hand up.
I don't really know what to make of it, or if it's just coincidence, but right there where it says beware for evil is before you, that word for evil in the Hebrew is ra. So beware for ra is before you. I don't know if that's what if Pharaoh was probably speaking whatever Egyptian language they had, so it's probably not what they said, but interesting.
I wouldn't be surprised if Yahuwah made that a word in the Hebrew language to mock their deities, because they have, their patron deity is Amun Amen Ra. So I wouldn't be surprised, Yahuwah a lot of times, even this chapter in the Septuagint says how I have mocked the Egyptians. I wouldn't be surprised if Yahuwah is mocking the Egyptians in the Hebrew's own language. And, basically calling their deity evil, because really, that's who they serve. They serve a evil, mighty one. They don't. So I wouldn't be surprised if Yahuwah is being what we would say facetious, because a lot of times Yahusha did it to the Pharisees too. How he was facetious with them a lot. Well, don't you know in your own law it says you are mighty ones? Yahusha has that same character as Yahuwah, just kind of dig at them, take a little dig at them. So I wouldn't be surprised if Yahuwah did that. But that's a good point to bring up, that evil in Hebrew is ra. That's interesting. Not so, but let the men go and serve Elohim, for this you yourselves seek, and they cast them out of the presence, out from the presence of Pharaoh. Verse 12, and Yahuwah said to Moshe, stretch out your hand over the land of Egypt, and let the locusts come up on the land, and it shall devour every herb of the land, and all the fruit of the trees, which the hail left. And Moshe lifted up his rod toward heaven, and Yahuwah brought a south wind upon the earth all that day and all that night. The morning dawned, and the south wind brought up locusts and brought them up over all the land of Egypt, and they rested in very great abundance over all the borders of Egypt. Before them there were not such locusts, neither after them shall there be. I just kind of wonder what type of locusts we're talking about here. They covered the land of Egypt? How big are these locusts?
They're probably very big.
I wonder, I don't know. I wonder what possible parallel that could be with the hybrid locusts that come out of the pit. I don't know. Something to look into, because they're covering the land of Egypt. They can't be like these little locusts we know of today.
They're like scorpions, to tell you the truth.
They're probably huge locusts, in my opinion. Like, Egypt is big. Isn't Egypt like a continent? That's like
Egypt is big. It is.
because it's in the continent of Africa.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's pretty big. So I don't know. Go ahead, brother Joshua. I see you got your hand up.
Another thing to take into factor is might not necessarily be the size, but the quantity.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, it would have to be a huge quantity then, man. Covering the whole land. Oof, man. Yeah, it even says here they covered the whole face of the eretz or land or earth. And the land was wasted, and they devoured every herb of the land and all the fruit of the trees which was left by the hail. There was no green thing left on the trees. You know what this reminds me of? Revelation 7. Do not hurt any green thing until Elohim's servants are sealed. That's what it kind of reminds me of. No green thing left on the trees, nor on all the herbs of the field in all the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh hastened to call Moshe and Aaron, saying, I have sinned before Yahuwah your Elohim and against you. Well, at least he's being honest. Therefore, pardon my sin yet this time. And again, I don't think this is real repentance here, if you want my opinion. This is more of like him, how we the false idea of repentance we have in the church today, oh, I'm sorry, forgive me. And then they keep doing it. And sin yet this time, and pray to Yahuwah your Elohim, let him take away from me this death. And Moshe went forth from Pharaoh and prayed to Elohim. Okay, all right, I don't know why it goes up. All right, I was at verse 18, I believe. Okay, let's see here, verse 18. It's the only thing I hate, the scrolling on this program sometimes. It can get a little tricky here. There we go. And Moshe went forth from Pharaoh and prayed to Elohim. Okay, and Yahuwah brought in the opposite direction a strong wind from the sea and took up the locusts and cast them into the Red Sea. And was not one locust left in all the land of Egypt. And Yahuwah hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and he did not send away the children of Yasharal. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, stretch out your hand toward heaven, and let there be darkness over the land of Egypt, darkness that may be felt. And Moshe stretched out his hand toward heaven. There was blackness, darkness, very black, even a storm over the land of Egypt 3 days. I wonder if there's any parallel between that and Yahusha being in Sheol for 3 days. I wonder if there's like a parallel there.
We're constantly seeing 3 days all throughout.
Oh, especially that one, Mom, because it's not just 3 days, but there's darkness for 3 days. And technically when, the grave, there would be darkness, he would be in Sheol for 3 days. So I think there's a purposeful parallel there. Let's see. And for 3 days, no man saw his brother, and no man rose up from his bed for 3 days, but all the children of Yashral had light in all the places where they were. And Pharaoh called Moshe and Aaron, saying, go serve Yahuwah your Elohim, only leave your sheep and your oxen, and let your little ones depart with you. And Moshe said, no, but you shall give to us whole burnt offerings and sacrifices, which we will sacrifice to Yahuwah our Elohim. Now, this is kind of, I would say this is a little weird, but it's kind of like showing you that there's certain things that were allowable before the law of Moses. Like, I don't know if you guys ever read, once you get to the law of Moses and post Sinai, they can't do this anymore. They can't take animals from Gentiles and sacrifice them. Like, there's an actual law that says you can't do that. So interesting. You see like little differences in Yahuwah's law before the law of Moshe is given at Sinai. There's like little interesting differences. So I'm just taking note of that. And our livestock shall go with us, and we will not leave a hoof behind. For of them we will take to serve Yahuwah our Elohim, but we know not in what manner we shall serve Yahuwah our Elohim until we arrive there. But Yahuwah hardened the heart of Pharaoh. He would not let them go. So a third time in the row, Yahuwah makes Pharaoh's heart obstinate. And I want to look at the Targum of Jonathan real quick, because I think it gets a little bit more literal with this verse here in verse 27. I think it makes it a little bit clearer that Yahuwah is making his heart like that. Let's see here. Go here. I remember reading something this week from it, and where it's a little bit, yeah. It says here in the Targum Pseudo Jonathan of the same verse we're looking at here in Exodus 10:27. But Yahuwah made strong the design of Pharaoh's heart, and he would not release them. So meaning like Yahuwah made his heart extra obstinate, basically. So yeah, I kind of like that. It gives a little bit better context there. All right, so it's definitely Yahuwah making his heart like that. And Pharaoh said, "Depart from me, beware of seeing my face again, for in what day you shall appear before me, you shall die." And Moshe said, "You have said, I will not appear in your face again." And by the way, the reason why I didn't read well there is it's in italics. Okay, so it's probably not there in the Greek. Okay. All right. So, let's see here. Next chapter, chapter 11. Okay. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, my bad there. All right. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, oh, my bad, Brother Joshua. I didn't see you had your hand up. Go ahead. If you have anything to add before we do chapter 11.
I was going to say that Pharaoh's a little bit schizophrenic. He can't come in to see my face, so you'll die. He calls him in.
What was that, brother? You were kind of breaking up a little bit.
I was going to say that Pharaoh can't seem to make up his mind because he says, don't come in and see my face or you're going to die the next time you do. And then shortly after I think he calls in Moshe.
Yeah, definitely double-mindedness. Definitely got a spirit working in Pharaoh there. Yeah, I definitely agree. There's something going on with him. All right, so chapter 11. Yahuwah said to Moshe, "I will yet bring one plague upon Pharaoh and upon Egypt, and after that he will send you forth from here. And whenever he sends you forth with everything, he will indeed cast you out altogether. Therefore, speak secretly in the ears of the people, and let everyone ask of his neighbor jewels, silver, gold, and clothing." Okay, and I know there's like a huge gap between the verses here. I don't know why it's like this. There we go. Verse 3. And Yahuwah gave his people's favor in the sight of the Egyptians, and they lent to him. And the man Moshe was very great before the Egyptians and before Pharaoh and before his servants. And Moshe said, "Thus says Yahuwah, about midnight I will go forth in the midst of Egypt. And every firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sits on the throne, even to the firstborn of the female servant that is by the mill, and to the firstborn of all cattle. There shall be a great cry throughout all the land of Egypt, such as never been, the like of which shall not be repeated again. But among all the children of Yashrael shall not a dog snarl with his tongue, either at man or beast, that you know how wide a distinction Yahuwah will make between the Egyptians and Yashrael. And all these your servants shall come down to me and reverence me, saying, Go forth, you and all the people over whom you preside. Afterwards I will go forth." And Moshe went forth from Pharaoh and with great anger. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, "Pharaoh will not heed you, that I may greatly multiply my signs and wonders in the land of Egypt." And Moshe and Aaron did all these signs and wonders in the land of Egypt before Pharaoh. And Yahuwah hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and he did not hearken to send forth the children of Yashrael out of the land of Egypt. All right, Exodus 12. Now you're going to see a pretty huge difference there in the end of this chapter. I'm just giving a heads up. You're going to see a huge difference depending on what Bible you have. So just keep a heads up for verse 40. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, this month shall be a beginning to you of months. It is the first to you among the months of the year. Speak to all the congregation of the children of Yahshua, saying, on the 10th of this month, let each man take for himself a lamb according to the houses of their fathers, every man a lamb for his household. And if there be few in a household, so that there are not enough for the lamb, he shall take with himself his neighbor that lives near to him as to the number of persons, everyone according to each man's need. You shall make a reckoning for the lamb. It shall be to you a lamb unblemished, a male of a year old. You shall take it from the lambs or from the goats, and it shall be kept by you till the 14th of this month. And this is why I believe that Passover, the day of Passover actually starts at the end of the 13th. If you understand biblically, the way Yahuwah's calendar works, a day starts at sunset. So for it to be the start of the 14th, it has to be the 13th at sunset. Okay. Go ahead, brother Joshua. I see you got your hand raised.
Also, when you're putting it into when you're plugging these dates into the Basora accounts, when you're taking all of the Basora accounts together, it seems to show that there's two different Sabbaths that take place. One being the high Sabbath of the first day of unleavened bread, and then the other one being just a regular Shabbat, both around the time of the crucifixion. And when you're plugging in all these details of the Basora accounts, the only way that each detail fits in is if you have Passover beginning on the beginning of the 14th, the 13th going into the 14th. There's no way you can fit in those details if it ends if it starts at the end of the 14th going into the 15th.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, chronologically, it would be definitely off. I also a theory I have why it gets confusing with the wording and stuff. Like they're asking Yahushua on the first day of unleavened bread. It seems like they're asking him on the 15th. When should they kill the lamb and all that? What you got to understand too, though, is that most likely the Pharisees and Sadducees probably had a different calendar than Yahushua and his disciples, and possibly it would have been the first day of unleavened bread maybe for them. So that's something to look into too. There seems to be, at that time period, historically, it seems like there seems to be two calendars going around, because Yahushua eats the Passover with his disciples, but then for the rest of the Judeans, it's not Passover until the following day that Yahushua actually gets killed. So it seems very confusing the way the Brit Hadashah is worded, but there could be a historical context that we're missing. Go ahead, brother Joshua.
I think the context is not in historical missing. I think it actually, what it is because I was looking into this over the past couple days, and the word for you have three different accounts saying, on the first day of unleavened. It doesn't say first day of unleavened bread, or it just says the first day of unleavened. But that word for first, I don't have it in front of me right now, but it's a Greek word that can also be used as before, like the first comes before the second. So what a lot of people are thinking is that the way it should be translated is before the day of unleavened, or before the unleavened, rather than the first of the unleavened. The word day is actually not even in there. It's just literally before the unleavened, which I think that's how it should be translated, considering the context. They also give. There's also examples of. There's also other times that word is used as before. I think one is in John, where the John the Baptist says that he who was first came before me, or something like that.
Yeah.
But it's the same word, and it's used. It's translated as before rather than first.
Interesting. Yeah, that would make sense that it would be the day before, the days of the day before unleavened bread. That would make perfect sense, like you said, because they're making the Passover ready that night to eat it. So that makes perfect sense. And as we're going to see later on in this chapter, to Brother Joshua's point, the synchronology of this chapter shows you it has to be the beginning of the 14th that they're eating the Passover that night, because it says you shall eat this in the same night. And Yahuwah is killing the Egyptians at midnight. And that's really when they're eating the lamb, really, is when he's killing the Egyptians. Even in the Ten Commandments movie, right, Mom? When he's slaughtering the firstborn, what's happening with the Israelites? They're eating the lamb at that point. So I'm just saying, if we look at the chronological order of events in the first Passover, it makes perfect sense what Brother Joshua just brought up. Okay, so going back to the verse here, it says the 14th of this month, and all the multitude of the congregation, the children of Yahshua shall kill it. I like how the Septuagint says toward evening, because this gives you realistically, you need a decent amount of time to roast a lamb, just realistically. Okay. Killing it at sunset gives you a very small amount of time between that and midnight when they would have been eating the lamb. But if you're killing the lamb a little bit before evening of the 13th at evening, then you kind of have enough time. You kind of have enough time to actually to have it fully ready to be eaten by the time it's midnight of that same night, if that makes any sense. So I kind of like how the Septuagint says you kill it toward evening. So I like that little difference there. Anyway, so verse 7, and they shall take of the blood and put it on the two doorposts and on the lintel in the houses, wherever they shall eat them. What I like, the fact that it says on the doorpost, you're putting, with the lintel and the blood of the lamb. To me, that's symbolic of the commandment that they get later on in Deuteronomy 6, right? The mezuzah. That's what it kind of reminds me of a little bit. But anyway, verse 8, and they shall eat the flesh in this night, roasted with fire. They shall eat unleavened bread in bitterness. It should say in bitterness, and I think we've talked about this before on the record. I don't even think it's there in the text, either in the Greek or the Hebrew. And herbs is not there either. Herbs is definitely not there. The Greek word for bitter herbs is bitterness. The same thing with the Hebrew of the Masoretic text. So herb was actually added in there by translators. Go ahead, Joshua.
So you say that because that's because they're eating unleavened bread with the Passover.
Yeah, they're eating unleavened bread with the Passover.
So, so then the removing of the leaven begins before the 14th, then, not at the end of the 14th.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it's weird because it's the way it's worded. It says from the first day, so it would make you think it's the first day of unleavened bread. But maybe the first day is referring to. Maybe it's referring to the 14th, the beginning of the 14th. I don't know. That's a good question. I really don't know, because it's very vague the way it's worded. It just says from the first day you shall remove leaven from your houses in this chapter. So I guess it could be inferred from that verse we just read that the first day would have to be the night of Passover, or right before the night of Passover, I'm guessing. So That's the only thing I could think to reconcile those two, is that the first day is not meaning the first day of unleavened bread. Yeah, that's very possible. I do know that they technically did not remove the leaven when the first Passover happened. They still had technically. What's weird about it is they did not. They had to rush with the dough. They did not actually have the ability to let the dough rise. So in the first Passover, I'm not exactly sure when they would have been removing the leaven, because they were pretty much in a rush that night. So I guess you could infer that commandment would mean like when the Passover, the day of Passover starts, you're to remove the leaven. I guess that would make sense. It's very vague the way that the commandment's given. It just says from the first day. And I mean, there's different interpretations of that. I guess the more correct one would probably be the Passover one, only because it links up. It kind of synchronizes with the context of the story a little bit better. There's not a contradiction if they're having unleavened bread already at Passover, if they already got the leaven out of their homes. So I definitely see your point. Yeah, I would have to agree with you. I don't think they could be waiting till the 15th to do that. It kind of doesn't make sense if they're already eating unleavened bread with the lamb. So, yeah, I guess they would have to get it out at like I guess the 13th that evening, since that's the first day of the, when Passover starts would be the 14th. So I guess at 13th that evening is when they're getting rid of the leaven from their homes. And I don't have time to explain, but I would really encourage people to look into the type of leaven this chapter is talking about, because it's specifically talking about the leaven in context of bread. To eat leaven, to not eat leaven, remove all the leaven so you're not eating leaven during the week of unleavened bread. It's not the same thing as removing every little thing that has yeast in your home. I truly believe the leaven that culturally this would have been understood as was, what is it called, Mom? Farmers call it a starter.
A starter's kit. Yeah, I think so.
Where you have this leavened starter that is like a sourdough starter. Mm-hmm. And culturally, in all farmers, it was a specific type of leaven that would make dough rise, is what the leaven seems to be talking about here, because in the context of this chapter, as you'll see, is constantly saying that you shall not eat leaven, you shall not have leavened bread. It is constantly in the context of a certain type of leaven, it seems like. Go ahead, Brother Joshua. I see you got your hand up.
Yeah, I would say that the starter is the same thing that you would find in like a sourdough starter.
Yeah, and I know a brother of ours, Zachary Bauer, he made a short video. I really recommend people check it out, where he's going through this chapter that we're reading through right now and explaining why it has to be a certain type of leaven the Father's telling us not to have in our homes, rather than getting rid of everything that has just yeast in it. Like
that last 6-pack of beer.
Like getting rid of beer because beer has yeast in it. That I doubt that's what Yahuwah was referring to when he says get the leaven out of your homes. As far as the physical leaven that he's talking about in this chapter, I sincerely doubt it when he's coupling leaven with bread here. I seriously doubt that, in my opinion. I don't think he was talking about anything that has, because first of all, there's regular yeast, and then there's like the starter we're talking about, that's leaven that makes dough rise, just to explain. So it seems like it's a certain type of leaven. Go ahead, Joshua.
Isn't there also scripture that says that you can have strong drink on Passover?
Yeah, well, definitely in general for the feast. I don't know if he's specific about what feast it's referring to, but yeah, to your point, and I think it's Deuteronomy 14 or something, and it says like anything you desire, strong drink, and all of that. So So that
It all
means
has yeast.
you would have wine that has yeast in it. By the way, any type of wine has yeast in it. You cannot remove yeast from wine. So, and another example, let's say hypothetically speaking, the Last Supper is a Passover meal. That means Yahushua was drinking wine at the Passover meal. So let's just say that it was a Passover meal, and we can firmly say that it was. That means if it's wrong to have anything that has yeast in it during the week of unleavened bread, then what's going on with Yahushua drinking wine at the Passover? That's all I'm trying to say. So I think it's important that we understand that there's certain things we've lost track of our Western culture, including what the yeast Yahuwah is referring to, the leaven he's referring to here. It has to do with bread. Just something to think about. Okay. Anyway, I think moving on, I don't want to beat a dead horse there. Let's see here. Okay, so it says you shall kill him. So kill him towards evening. We already talked about that. Verse 9, you shall not eat it raw nor boiled in water, but only roasted with fire, the head with its legs and its entrails. Nothing shall be left of it till the morning, and a bone of it you shall not break. But that which is left of it till the morning you shall burn with fire. This is one of the clues we know that Yahushua was our Passover lamb. This is one of the clues right here. None of his bones could be broken. And we see that in the Brit Hadashah, the New Testament, they reference this, that, it was fulfilled. He fulfilled the Passover lamb because his bones could not be broken. So Yahushua's bones was not broken when he died on the stake for us, on when he was impaled for us on the tree. Okay. And thus you shall eat it, your loins girded and your sandals on your feet and your staff in your hand, and you shall eat it in haste, meaning quickly. You got to understand, the reason you're eating it in haste then is Yahuwah is striking the Egyptians, right, that night while they're eating. So they're going to have to be moving. After they're eating, they really got to leave Egypt like pretty soon after. So that's why they're eating in haste. It is a Passover to Yahuwah. And I will go out through all the land of Egypt in that night, and I will smite every firstborn in the land of Egypt. We talked about this last night, how Jubilees contradicts this here. Okay. It says Yahuwah will smite the firstborn in the land of Egypt. And I'm not saying that the destroyer didn't help him, because we see in the prior chapter that he talks about in one of the prior chapters, I will send the destroyer to smite the firstborn. Yes, he had the destroyer, as a, serve him to as part of his purpose to destroy some of the Egyptian firstborn. But Yahuwah is also doing it too. Okay, both man and beast, and on all the mighty ones of Egypt will I execute vengeance. I am Yahuwah, which this is funny to note. If you look at all the past plagues, what do all they have in common? Each plague that Yahuwah sent on them represents one of their gods, by the way. So I just find that interesting. Okay, so he's kind of like mocking them. He's like, you know what? Oh, you worship a frog? Okay, frogs, vice versa. Every little plague represented one of their false gods. And the blood shall be for a sign to you on the houses in which you are, and I will see the blood and will protect you. And there shall not be on you the plague of destruction when I smite in the land of Egypt. And this day shall be to you a memorial, and you shall keep it a feast to Yahuwah throughout all your generations. You shall keep it a feast for a perpetual ordinance. 7 days you shall eat unleavened bread, and from the first day you shall remove. From the first day you shall utterly remove leaven from your houses. Whoever shall eat leaven, that soul shall be utterly destroyed from Yashrael from the first day until the 7th day. And the first day shall be called set apart, and the 7th day shall be a set apart gathering to you. You shall do no servile work on them. Only as many things as is necessary shall be done by every soul, and this only shall be done by you. And you shall keep this commandment, for on this day will I bring out your force out of the land of Egypt. You shall make this day a perpetual ordinance throughout your generations. Beginning the 14th day of this first month, you shall eat unleavened bread. from evening to the 21st day of the month till evening. So to Brother Joshua's point, verse 18 clearly shows that they would have to start eating the unleavened bread on the 14th, not the 15th, to have a 7 days of eating unleavened bread. Okay. 7 days leaven shall not be found in your houses. Whosoever shall eat anything leavened, that soul shall be cut off from the congregation of Yahshua, both among the occupiers of the land and the original inhabitants. Oh, and just FYI, I find something interesting. I was looking at the Targums this week in verse 19 there. Instead of stranger, you know what they define as a stranger? The guys that wrote the Targums, they define a stranger to be a proselyte. Just find that a little interesting. So they consider commonwealth to be a stranger, not just a random Gentile living in the land. Okay, they consider someone who crossed over to be a stranger. Just thought that was interesting. You shall eat nothing leavened, but in every habitation of yours you shall eat unleavened bread. Okay. So again, it keeps referring to the context of not having leaven to not eat leaven. Okay. And Moshe called all the elders of the children of Yahshua and said to them, go away and take to yourselves a lamb according to your families and slay the Passover lamb. And you shall take a bunch of hyssop, having dipped it into some of the blood that is by the door. You shall touch the lintel and put upon both doorposts, even on the blood which is by the door. But none of you shall go out of the door of his house until morning. And Yahuwah shall pass by to smite the Egyptians, shall see blood upon the lintel and upon the doorpost, and Yahuwah shall pass over the door and shall not allow the destroyer to enter into your houses to kill you. Okay, so notice how the destroyer is now there being referenced, that he will not allow the destroyer to kill his people, but he's allowing the destroyer to kill the firstborn of the Egyptians. Okay, and keep this thing as an ordinance for yourself and for your children forever. Okay. And if you should enter into the land which Yahuwah shall give you as he has spoken, keep this service, and shall to come to pass if your sons say to you, what is this service? That you shall say to them, this Passover is a sacrifice to Yahuwah, as he defended the houses of the children of Yashar in Egypt when he struck the Egyptians, but delivered our houses. And the people bowed and worshiped. And the children of Yashar departed and did as Yahuwah commanded Moshe and Aaron, so did they. And it came to pass at midnight that Yahuwah struck all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on the throne to the firstborn of the captive in the dungeon, and the firstborn of all cattle. And Pharaoh rose up by night, and his servants and all the Egyptians. And there was a great cry in all the land of Egypt, for there was not a house in which there was not one dead. And Pharaoh called Moshe and Aaron by night and said to them, rise and depart from my people. Both you and the children of Yashar go and serve Yahuwah your Elohim as you say, and take with you your sheep, your oxen. Barak me also, I pray you. And the Egyptians constrained the people so that they cast them out of the land with haste, for they said, we all shall die. And the people took their dough before their grain was leavened, bound up as it was in their garments on their shoulders. And the children of Yashar did as Moshe commanded them. And they asked of the Egyptians articles of silver and gold and apparel. And Yahuwah gave his people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, and they lent to them, and they plundered the Egyptians. And the children of Yashar departed from Ramesses to Sukkot, to the full number of 600,000 footmen, even men besides the baggage, and a great mixed company went up with them. What does that mean? Not just ethnic Israelites, okay? and sheep and oxen, and very much cattle. And they baked the dough which they brought out of Egypt, unleavened cakes, for it had not been leavened, for the Egyptians cast them out, and they could not remain, neither did they prepare provision for themselves for the journey. Now, here is a controversial part. So, open book test, everyone. So, open book test. How long were the Israelites in Egypt? Well, the Masoretic text would have you believe that they were in Egypt for 400 years. We're going to test that here. What does the Septuagint say? And the sojourning of the children of Yahshua, while they sojourned in the land of Egypt and what? And the land of Canaan, so both together, were 430 years. What does the Samaritan Pentateuch say? Okay. Oh, what do you know? Almost identical to the Septuagint. The sojourning of the children of Yahshua and the fathers of them who dwelt in Canaan and in Egypt 430 years. So wait a minute, that means that they could have only possibly been in Egypt for 200 and something years. Why would they lie about that? Why would the Masoretes lie about that? Something you might want to look into for yourselves. And funny enough to note, I'll even read you guys the Targum version, which, by the way, was written by Judeans, okay, around the 2nd to 3rd century AD, okay? So this is how the Targum Pseudo-Jonathan reads, which agrees with the Samaritan Pentateuch and the Septuagint. It says, and the days of the dwelling of the sons of Yashrael in Mitzrayim were 30 weeks of years, 30 times 7 years, which is the sum of 210 years. But the number of the 430 years had passed away since Yahuwah spake to Abraham in the hour that he spake with him. And according to this Targum, the little commentary says that they believe when Yahuwah spoke to him with the dividing parts would have been the 15th of Abib, which, who knows when that exactly was, but that's what they believe. Between the dividing parts until the day that they went out of Mitzrayim. So, but what's interesting to note is that this Targum here is referencing something that's in the New Testament, if I'm not mistaken. I think Paul or someone in the book of Acts talks about from what Abraham to the giving of the Torah of Moses was 400 years, right? Interesting that a Judean scribe references that in their Torah. Interesting. Anyway, moving on. Let me see here. I think we might have a hand raised here. Yep. Go ahead, Brother Joshua, before I go to verse 41, if you got anything to add.
No, that's old hand.
Oh, okay. Verse 41, and it came to pass after the 430 years, all the armies or forces of Yahuwah came forth out of the land of Egypt by night. And it is a watch kept to Yahuwah so that he should bring them out of the land of Egypt that very night, as a watch kept to Yahuwah so that it should be to all the children of Yashrael to their generations. And Yahuwah said to Moshe and Aaron, this is the law of the Passover. No stranger shall eat of it. Okay, and every slave or servant bought with money, him you shall circumcise, and then he shall eat of it. Okay, a sojourner or hired servant shall not eat of it. In one house shall it be eaten. You shall not carry of the flesh out from the house, and a bone of it you shall not break. All the congregation of children of Yashrael shall keep it. And if any proselyte shall come to you to keep the Passover to Yahuwah, you shall circumcise every male of him, and then shall he approach to sacrifice it, and he shall be even as the original inhabitant of the land. No uncircumcised person shall eat of it. There shall be one law to the native and to the proselyte coming among you. I like how the Septuagint makes the distinction between a proselyte and a regular unconverted Gentile stranger. I kind of like that. Okay, verse 50. And the children of Yashrael did as Yahuwah commanded Moshe and Aaron for them, so they did. All right. And it came to pass in that day that Yahuwah brought out the children of Yashrael from the land of Egypt with their forces. Okay. Well, we're going to the last chapter of this Exodus portion here, chapter 13. And this is known as the chapter of unleavened bread, the first time the unleavened bread commandments are given for the Feast of Unleavened Bread, and the set aparting of the firstborn. Okay. And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, set apart to me every firstborn, first produced, opening every womb among the children of Yashrael, both of man and beast, it is mine. And Moshe said to the people, remember this day in which you came forth out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage, for with a strong hand Yahuwah brought you out of this place. No leavened bread shall be eaten. For on this day you are going out in the month of new grain, or Abib. All right. And it shall come to pass when Yahuwah your Elohim shall have brought you into the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, Hivites, Jebusites, Girgashites, Perizzites, which he swore to your fathers to give you, a land flowing with milk and honey, that you shall perform this service in this month. 6 days you shall eat unleavened bread, and on the seventh day is a feast to Yahuwah. 7 days shall you eat unleavened bread. Nothing leavened shall be seen with you, neither shall you have leaven in all your borders. And you shall tell your son in that day, saying, therefore Yahuwah has dealt thus with me as I was going out of Egypt. And it shall be unto you a sign upon your hand. Now, again, a sign, it's not literal. I know Judaism has turned this into literal. It's not literal, guys. It is a sign. Just like Emmanuel is not literally the name of Messiah. It is a sign. Okay? Upon your hand, and a memorial before your eyes, not in between your eyes or on your forehead. It's a memorial before your eyes. It's spiritual. Okay? That the law of Yahuwah may be in your mouth. For with a strong hand, Yahuwah Elohim has brought you out of Egypt. I'm starting to really think that the way the Masoretic translates that verse, they're trying to promote like a rabbinical interpretation by saying it's between your eyes. Because you see today with the, what is it, the Jewish cube thing that they put on their forehead, that they put the Teflon in there and all that. I kind of wonder if the Masoretes changed before your eyes to between your eyes to promote a rabbinical, Talmudic interpretation of this verse. I don't know. I might be reaching, but I'm just noticing a little difference there. Before your eyes versus between your eyes. So anyway, go ahead, Joshua. I see you got your hand up. Go ahead.
I got a question. I'm struggling to see when this is physical or when it's literal and when it's spiritual, because this is very similar to the mark that the beast gives. A mark on your hand or on your forehead.
The reason I say it has to be spiritual is a sign is a sign. If he wanted them to put it physically on on their bodies, he would have worded it that way. A sign means it's not like literal. A sign like on your right hand and before your eyes. It's like in the Hebrew culture, on your right hand means what you put yourself to do, your actions. So Yahuwah is using it as an allegory to word it like that. He's actually wording it as an allegory. And the fact that it's as is also giving us a hint that it's not literal. The fact that it says.
So then why wouldn't, if it means, as far as your actions, then why wouldn't it mean the same thing in Revelations when the on your right hand or between your on your forehead?
Well, because number one, the Greek there is not on, it's actually if I'm not mistaken, depends on the Greek manuscript you look at, because one says on, the other says in. Number two, I don't equate the mark of the beast as the same as Yahuwah's seal. And this commandment being given is not the seal of Yahuwah. This commandment right here is talking about a sign. It's not the same thing as we see later on where Yahuwah talks about the Sabbath is like a seal. Okay, where like this is not talking about, first of all, the context of this is different from the seal of Yahuwah and the mark of the beast. This is not even the same context in this chapter. This context is talking about a singular commandment as a sign. And even if you go later on to Deuteronomy 6, when you compare that to the mezuzah, the language for the commandment of the mezuzah is very literal versus this is all, it's pretty much allegorical. If he really wanted us to put, whatever, a box on our head and all that, he would have worded it that way. From what I understand, the only reason Judaism does that today as physical is because they've added to that command. And you even see that in the Targums where it says the tefillin, put the tefillin on your forehead, put the thing around your wrist. That's not.
So I definitely believe that it's spiritual. I'm not struggling in the aspect of not seeing it spiritual. I'm struggling in the aspect of not equating the mark of the beast in the same way as spiritual and not literal.
Well, I believe it's both. I believe the mark of the beast is both a physical mark and a spiritual mark. The reason I believe that is if it's not both, then we have a problem with the buying and selling. It has to be both. The mark of the beast has to be both. You have to have a literal mark on you to be recognized that you can't buy or sell. So it's both to me.
The buying and selling couldn't be taken spiritually, like in the way that Messiah tells us, come and buy without money, or something like that.
No, I don't think so at all. It has to be physical because the government is going to, from what I see prophecy being literally fulfilled as, is the government needs to track us with something. They're going to be putting a physical mark of the beast on us so that if they see that we don't have that mark or the number of his name, that we cannot physically buy or sell. We will not be able to buy food. We will not be able to pay for rent, nothing. We will I believe it's very literal in that verse in Revelation. But I'm not taking away that there's a spiritual side to it. I'm not taking away that there will be a spiritual side that we're, I'm pretty sure that there's going to be a day of rest that the beast's religious system puts into. And, those that don't keep his Sabbath versus the Yahuwah Sabbath will not be able to buy or sell either. So I'm not saying that there's not a spiritual side to it, but there has to be a physical side as well. You cannot, for you to not be able to buy food, not being able to live anywhere without paying for something, there has to be a physical side to it. And that's the reason
a literal group of laws.
Yeah.
That there's 7 laws. They're called the Noahide laws, and they've already been passed here in the United States and several countries around the world. Mm-hmm. The people just don't know about it because it hasn't gone into effect yet.
Yeah.
But once it does go into effect, it's going to go into effect all around the world. Mm-hmm. And according to Ron Wyatt, who spoke with the angels that were guarding the Ark of the Covenant, he said, or the angel said, I should say, that this group of laws was going to be the mark of the beast, and that when that comes out, the 2 tablets inside of the Ark of the Covenant will be shown to the world.
I guess that's possible. I definitely would agree that there has to be some type of, like I said, physical and spiritual side, both to the mark of the beast. It can't be one or the other. If it's only spiritual, it doesn't fit Revelations of the not buying and selling. Because to me, the context of that verse in Revelations is very literal. It's talking about people that cannot afford, they will not be able to buy food. They will not be able to live anywhere. They will, like, believers will be on the street, basically.
Exactly.
So that's the point I was trying to bring across to explain why I think it has to be spiritual and physical. You can't have one without the other. So as far as comparing that to this chapter, I don't think we can compare those two different contexts. This chapter is not talking about the seal of Yahuwah. It's talking about this specific isolated commandment should be a sign before our eyes and our hands. It's talking about spiritual context. It's not the reason I believe that too, like I said, if you look at Deuteronomy chapter 6 compared to this chapter, it's completely different the way it's worded. It's talking about to ascribe commandments to the doorposts. So completely different context, in my opinion. So that's why I believe what I believe. It's just the way it's worded. I would take that verse 10 we just read as spiritual. So I don't think there's any physical to that. I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe they did take that as some way as being physical, but it would be kind of hard to take that as physical when he's talking about the law of, I think the context of verse 10 is talking about the law of unleavened bread. I don't know how you make that physical. So the context of the chapter seems to be talking about only spiritual on that particular thing. But anyway, verse 11 says, and it shall come to pass when Yahuwah your Elohim shall bring you into the land of the Canaanites as he swore to your fathers, and you shall give it to you, that you shall set apart every firstborn opening womb and the males to Yahuwah, everyone that opens the womb out of the herds or among your cattle, as many as you shall have, you shall set apart the males to Yahuwah. Every offspring opening the womb of the donkey you shall change for a sheep. And this is because you don't give Yahuwah unclean animal, obviously. And if you will not change it, you shall redeem it. Every firstborn of man among your sons you shall redeem. I find that interesting because Yahushua is the first of the first fruits, and he's redeemed us. So I find that very, very purposeful that Yahuwah is giving this commandment about redeeming your firstborn sons. Okay. And if later on your son should ask you, saying, what is this? Then you shall say to him, with a strong hand, Yahuwah brought us out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Okay. And when Pharaoh hardened his heart so as to not send us away, he slew every firstborn in the land of Egypt, both the firstborn man and the firstborn of beast. Therefore, I sacrifice every offspring that opens the womb, the males to Yahuwah, and every firstborn of my sons I will redeem. And it shall be for a sign upon your hand and immovable before your eyes. For with a strong hand, Yahuwah has brought you out of Egypt. And when Pharaoh sent forth the people, Elohim led them not by the way of the land of the Philistines, because it was near. For Elohim said, lest at any time the people repent when they see war and return to Egypt. An interesting tidbit in verse 17 there, if you have, let's see if I have it in front of me here, one of the targums of that verse, it kind of expounds why Yahuwah doesn't want them to go there. And it seems like it has a lot to do actually with the dry bones prophecy here. Just read this really quick. And this is another reason why I believe the end times generation is not what the dry bones were referring to. You look at Exodus, let's see, we're at Exodus 13, verse 18 here. Okay, hold on a second. Bear with me, guys. Bear with me. Exodus 13, 18. Okay. Here we go. So this is the Pseudo-Jonathan Targum, and it says here, starting at verse 17 here, and it was when Pharaoh had released the people that Yahuwah did not conduct them by the way of the land of the Philistines, though that was near one. For Yahuwah said, lest the people be affrighted in seeing their brothers who were killed in war, 200,000 men of strength of the tribe of Ephraim, who took shields and lances and weapons of war and went down to Gath to carry off the flocks of the Philistines, and because they transgressed against the statute of the word of Yahuwah, and went forth from Mitzrayim 3 years before the appointed end of their servitude, they were delivered into the hand of the Philistines, who slew them. These are the dry bones which the word of Yahuwah restored to life by the ministry of Ezekiel the prophet in the valley of Dura, by which if they now saw them, they would be afraid and return into Egypt. So it's very interesting that this Judean scribe who wrote the Targum Pseudo-Jonathan believes the dry bones, the people that were the dry bones that Ezekiel brought back to life were the Ephraimites of the Exodus generation. So I find that very interesting for what it's worth. So the fifth generation of children of Yashrael went out of the land of Egypt, going back to verse 18 there. And Moshe took the bones of Joseph with him, and he had solemnly adjured the children of Yashrael, saying, Elohim will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones here with you. And the children of Yashrael departed from Sukkot and encamped in Ethem by the wilderness. And Elohim led them in the day by a pillar of cloud to show them the way, and in the night by a pillar of fire. Okay. And the pillar of cloud failed not by day, nor the pillar of fire by night before all the people. Okay, so that's the end of our Exodus portion from Exodus 10 to 13. All right, so we're gonna have a brief intermission. We're gonna come right back though, and we're gonna start our new portion here. I think we're gonna be up to the prophets portion now, and we'll pick a new reader here. So we'll be starting next Jeremiah 46, and then we'll end with a third our Brit Hadashah portion of John 19. So please stay tuned for Jeremiah 46 and John 19. We'll be back very shortly. So stay tuned, YouTube, and